Coach, you're live with me.
Gentlemen and ladies, how are we?
We'll go first to Fluto Shinzawa.
Bruce, just a few questions. First off, by getting Jake up there on the first line and then moving David down, what do you hope to get out of those two?
Well, it's a little bit of a few guys, offensively haven't had much luck. Krejci, Jake, so maybe, Jake being back with Bergie and Marsh. I thought he played okay up there, Fluto. He got injured. I think it was against Philly. I thought he was doing a good job. They tend to push whoever's with them. So it could be a good arrangement. And then, Krejci has played before with Pasta, so it's just a little bit of a different look. We've talked about doing it in the past. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but hopefully it jump starts, both lines a little bit. I mean, I shouldn't say jump starts. Bergie and Marsh have been fine. They're going to generate every night. Pasta had a great start. Not quite as pucks aren't finding him quite as easily maybe as he did when he first came back, but some of that is coverage. So maybe this gets both lines scoring, I guess, consistently. We'll see where it goes from there.
Okay. And then just one thing on Kasha. First of all, where is he in terms of his recovery process?
Has not joined the team. Don't anticipate him joining us tomorrow. He's been skating lightly on his own. Like this morning, he was out with Kim, our skills coach. So until he's with the team, it's hard to project when he'd be back. So once he joins us, then I always have a better idea then from the staff.
Okay. Well, the kind of the big picture there. First of all, you're missing Andre the player, but I'm wondering how has that thrown a bit of a wrench into things down the lineup too, whether it's Smith or whether it's Jake now having to play the right side. How has
well, that's it. You said it. Jake has to move over. Somebody has to move over. So it's either Jake. We've used Bjork over there. Bjork's played there in the past, played there in college. We feel he's better on the left side. I mean, some of his games recently, he's done some good things, and he's also had some plays that have gone backwards on the right side. He has a tendency maybe to, instead of playing north-south, which we're trying to build into his game, play a little more straight line. He has good speed to separate. Some guys have to go back with a puck because they can't separate. That's not Anders. He can separate and get going. So we've asked him to do a little bit of that. So he's been one guy. Jake we've put over there. Again, a little bit new to him, but someone has to be there. Just the way it is, unless we just plug in a right stick and take a left stick out. But we feel these are our 12 best forwards right now. So I've always felt that ask a guy to play out of position, but have him in the lineup is better than just using a guy that maybe be the right, sort of hand, but not the better player. So that's just my philosophy.
Go next to Connor Ryan.
Hey, Bruce. Looking at a guy like Lauzon and the opportunity he's kind of seized for himself here in terms of a top pairing role, heavy PK work, what was kind of the message to him entering the season in terms of expectations, and how do you think he's kind of fared here with the minutes that he's been handed?
I think he's fared very well. We didn't put expectations on him. We gave him a job description. I think you nailed it. Shutdown guy, be physical, hard to play against, positionally, take care of the slot, front of the net, play in the middle of the ice. PK was going to be part of his minutes for sure. He used to turn his body a little bit on the puck side that he was on. He's learned to square up better, make himself bigger in terms of, which will help with shot suppression and passes going by you. So, he's done a good job with that. Joe's done a real good job working with him and Kevin in that area. Good first pass we wanted. That is still a work in progress, and we knew that. But we're trying to, make sure that in practice, first option is your best option type of mentality. Every once in a while, you might miss a better play, but in general, if that's the way you're thinking, move it, get it up to the forwards in a hurry, then I think that's where Jeremy needs to be right now with his puck play until he gets more comfortable in the league, recognizes time and space. We did that with Brandon Carlo if he first started. Grizz, we always allowed him, hey, you know what? Escape move, tight turn, look down ice. So every player is a little bit different. So with Jeremy, he's checked all the boxes defensively, hardness, compete, PK. Now we're just going to continue to work with him on his touches, puck touches. So like where he is, but again, there weren't expectations. There were just again, job description. If you want to stay in the lineup, build your minutes. This is, this is the ask. And I think he's done it excellently with Charlie. I think it's been good for Charlie to know that he's back there. It's allowed Charlie to get going a little bit up ice, knowing that Lauzon will be there for him. So all in all, it's been good. And even lately, Connor, he's done a good job with not allowing guys were getting behind him once a game early on. He's done a better job now recognizing the speed in this league and how quick guys can escape. So he's doing a better job at that, reading the ice on quick transition plays as well.
Great, thanks.
Go next to Rich Thompson.
Good afternoon, Bruce. Looking at 3 underinterrupted practice sessions right now, are there things you can do with these 3 practice sessions that you couldn't touch on in training camp, or how do you make productive use of these open days?
Well, I mean, today was we mixed in some attacks, trying to get inside ice with our 1-on-1s and 2-on-2s, how we battled. We're always trying to repeat breakout patterns. I think that repetition is good for our young D-core to know going back on a puck, what are my outlets? And then tomorrow will be more of a skills day, and guys that need some downtime, knowing we're going to practice Wednesday, we'll give them that. So that's what we've been able to do this week. I think this week becomes more of watching the body and the rest part of it. We've had a lot of road trips early on. Not that the road trips are as taxing this year because, you're staying in the same city sometimes, but you're still on the road. And then we're going back out on the road after we get back from Tahoe. So even though this is a bit of a rest, I say that and we're going to go fly 6 hours to play one game, but we have some time here this week that we can use to our advantage in that regard. I think, Rich, it's a good question in terms of training camp. If we had been kind of backwards of where we are with our record, we would be using it probably to go through a checklist of structure and systems, but we've been pretty good with those. We're not perfect, nobody is, but I think our mistakes have been minimized and correct fairly quickly in terms of, neutral zone defense, forecheck, the things, D-zone coverage, the things you want to sort of work on if you're having trouble as a group of 5 on the ice for the most part. So we've been fortunate there. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that this week. Of course, we'll hit on it, certain things, but in general, that's our plan this week is to work on our scoring, getting inside ice, and then obviously some guys like Kevin Miller today who had a maintenance day, allowing them to recover, from a tough 3 and 4 nights and get ready for, another stretch on the road coming up after Thursday.
Kind of hockey version of life balance, I guess, huh? Rest and work and. Yeah,
it is. You're right. And where we are, to be honest with you, where we are in the standings has allowed us to do a little bit of that and not have to grind this week. So good for the guys for recognizing that as well, to have these good road trips, to put some points in the bank. So, but who knows, down the road, it might not go as well and we'll have to revisit it, but that's where we are now. Yep.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yep.
Time for 2 more. We'll go to Tim Rosenthal next.
Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
Good, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thanks. You have I had a couple questions. First, do you have a further update on Grizzly and Zaboral?
Both, I don't know what we're listing them at. Grizz had an MRI yesterday. Obviously not on the ice today. Zaboral's upper body left the other day, not on the ice today. And I don't anticipate either one will be on the ice with us tomorrow. So my guess is they will be tough to be in the lineup if they're not getting on the ice here by Wednesday to play on Thursday. And then obviously I can give you the update whether they're going to Tahoe or not by then, but that's sort of where we're at with those guys. As I said, Kevin Miller was maintenance. He will be back with the group tomorrow, is my understanding. And Kasha skating on his own. So that's our injured group.
And the second one, have you gotten any sort of report on how Jack Studnicka is like down in Providence?
I did not get it. I saw the scores, and like everybody saw, Lauko had some good offensive production. Jack played the wing. So I have not got in depth with him. No, he's going to stay there for now. and, probably give them a string of games here, depending on how we do here, obviously, what we need, but allow them to play a little bit as opposed to just practicing with us.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Final question, Kevin Dupont. Go ahead.
Bruce, just back to Tim's question on the number of defensemen. Have you got enough D-men with the taxi squad to work your way through these next couple of practices, or would you consider a kid from Providence?
Well, Kevin Miller will join us tomorrow. So Camphor was there today making 6 healthy. Kevin will make 7. So 7 is enough. I wouldn't want to go through 6 every day. So that's something we would have talked about, but it sounds like Kevin will be back from our medical staff. Everyone else should be good to go tomorrow. So that will give us 7. And then we'll see, as I said earlier, Grizz and Zaboral, doubtful to join us tomorrow. Would they be ready Wednesday? Like I said, I'll try to give you an update as soon as I get one on those guys. So right now we would not go to Providence. One more injury, and obviously we would obviously need someone from there. And Vac was the guy that had the best camp here. So off the top of my head, I would think that he'd be a guy we would look at, but I'd have to call there and see how everyone's playing.
And lastly, we had John Moore on today, and I was asking about how the game's changed in the 10 or 12 years since he's been drafted. And he was talking about one aspect that caught my ear a little bit, which was when he first started out, a defenseman wheeling the net often would get flack for wheeling the net because they could get knocked down by a heavy forechecking forward, maybe a fourth liner. Just your kind of assessment of him and his speed being an asset, and especially that wrinkle of what he can do in wheeling the net.
Well, he's got a good point. I think before, when you'd wheel the net, the first thing you did, as soon as you got to the near post, it's like you better get your head up at the latest then to see what's coming, what's meeting you at the far post, because guys looked at those as, that was a green light hit, so to speak, for forwards coming, catch a guy coming around the other side. I don't want to go back and say it was if you remember the Bruce Bell hit by Wendell Clark years ago. If you haven't seen that one, that is a tough one, a guy wheeling the net. And that is not in the game as much anymore. Guys don't look for that hit a lot. I think Tkachuk does in Calgary a little bit, tries to catch guys. I think that's what led to his stuff with Kasha. He's coming out the other side. That was more in the offensive zone. But those hits aren't there anymore. The players just don't seem to look for them. Different type of player now. At the end of the day, I would always advise our D when you do wheel, because I think wheel is the best breakout in hockey, when you get your feet moving, get your shoulders square up ice. I mean, we've seen Charlie McAvoy do it here, 3, 4, 5 times a night, and when he gets ahead of steam, and that's the best way to lead the rush. You come out of the other side clean, tough to stop. So and Johnny Moore can do that. He certainly has the ability to separate. He's a big man. What you do from there, once you get past that first layer into the second layer, always determines who, a lot of times who's the good offensive defenseman and who's the guy that's not quite there yet. So, we're always trying to, then it's a read, right? I think usually that's when it gets tougher to teach, but certainly it's an effective breakout when you can get your feet moving. I think what happens now, Kevin, is so guys are so fast that you don't always get that separation early. They're right on your back pockets. You're almost going face first into the glass lot, bumping pucks, and that's what you see a lot of, those scrums behind the goal line, a bump and another bump, as opposed to that longer pass. Just because guys are clumped together so much in the forecheck now, there's more structure. I think when the old days, as Johnny was talking about, your second and third guy were usually coming right down the wall, because a lot of defensemen back there just rimmed it. So you were taught to just stay on the walls, whereas now there's more of those little bump reverses and a little bump over to a centerman. So that's one of the biggest changes in the games. I think if you went back to look at breakouts from 20 years ago, is probably you'd see less action below the goal line with the puck and more skating with it.
You brought back one of my favorite memories, which was in the older days. Busick would line guys back up there with that hip check, right? He'd come from the opposite side. He'd have a fellow forward chase a guy to the rear, and then he'd meet them at the back of the net.
And listen, it was tough on D back then. They had to be aware of that. Like I said, now it's less prevalent. And I think you'd get called, honestly, nowadays, if you came out the other side. Guy's head's probably down, so he's pitched forward a little. Probably a lot of headshots. So I think there's a mutual respect for guys, and the fact that you're going to get punished for it. So it's been legislated out of the game a little bit, but also personnel driven out of the game. You just have less guys that are doing that.